despite the uniqueness of some aspects of this movie and the high critical praise that it has received, overall, I feel like this film is overrated. I just realized I had these on still. I was doing a reaction to Saving Private Ryan, The Storming of Omaha Beach, and I forgot to take those out. Excuse the background noise. I think someone's running the vacuum. Okay, I was not initially intending to do this review tonight. It's almost midnight. I was going to put it off to tomorrow, but I decided, I'm here. I've kind of got the energy for it. Let me go ahead and do it. I went to go see In a Violent Nature tonight. I saw when the trailer came out, but I did not watch the trailer because I didn't want to be influenced in any way. What I did know about it before going into it was the uniqueness of the camera work, or how that it was not just the camera work, but how it was coming from the perspective of the killer. And I thought that was interesting. I like horrors, and so I was immediately intrigued by this. Fortunately, it's only about an hour and a half long. Unfortunately, it's an hour and a half long. I'll touch on what I mean by that a little bit later on. I'll start off with the pros. Well, one thing just to let you guys know, this is a Shudder movie, or it's coming to Shudder because it had the Shudder logo at the beginning. So if you don't get a chance to watch this in theaters and you have Shudder, you will be able to check it out at some point. I'm just not sure when it's going to leave the big screen. Some interesting things about this film. The camera work. It almost reminded me in some ways of Skinamarink. Now, I haven't seen Skinamarink, but I do know that they played with like the way they had the camera positioned and you basically never really saw anything. Sometimes this was the situation in the movie, but not completely. Like it started off where it's just a still, the camera's just like there and you're looking out at a dilapidated building and in the woods and all that sort of stuff. And there's like something hanging and there's like, I can't remember it when or if you see this thing that's hanging there off of something and you don't see anything happening. You hear voices and then you see someone reach and grab this thing that's hanging. And then you start to see activity around the area and then eventually you do see this guy, the main antagonist of the film. Gosh, I think his name was Johnny. It's revealed later that his name was Johnny. And a lot of the camera work is just, it's from behind as he's trudging through the woods and as he encounters these different people along the way. He is on a mission, basically, and he is looking for something. And so you see a lot of him just walking, which, okay, for like the first third of the movie, that sort of film tactic was interesting to me, and I was definitely very much drawn in. After a while, it started to get a bit redundant and a little boring because it just felt like it was dragging the movie down, dragging the pacing of the film down. I understand that it was a creative tactic and the reasoning behind it as far as the way the story was progressing, but after a while, the uniqueness of that started to wear off. It was shot in what looks like 4:3 aspect ratio, so that was different. Something else I liked about the way some of the camera work was done in the beginning was it didn't show the kills completely or clearly right away. There's a kill that happens towards the beginning, and while you see it taking place, not towards the beginning, I don't know, maybe it's like a third of the way through. While you see it taking place, it's kind of blurred. So it's not very sharp and focused. And I thought that was an interesting tactic. I actually liked that because for me, especially in horror, the less you see, the more effective the scares are. And so when they were doing that in the beginning, I felt like it was a very good tool. Also, they were not showing his face pretty much at all in the beginning. And for the majority of the film, there's only one time that you see his face clearly, and I feel like that was a mistake. I don't think we should have seen his face. I feel like he should have been a faceless entity that would have made him even scarier, but they show us his face and it kind of takes away a bit of the creep factor. I mean, it's creepy either way, but it just kind of, it dilutes it a little bit, for me anyway. There were some other things that I liked about the way it was filmed, and this is tying back to the walking in the woods. There's one particular scene in this area where he's walking through, and he's this brutal killer, and he's walking through this field of, like, I don't know, flowers or something, and there's trees in the background and a beautiful sunset. That was a gorgeous shot, but it was so weird because this brutal killer is walking through this area. I just thought the contrast was kind of interesting, and I noticed that enough to write it down. The kills were quite gnarly. The more the movie went on, the more graphic they got, the more you saw it explicitly portrayed. In the last kill, it was so over the top. Well, much of it was over the top, but that last kill, there's it's going on and on and on and on, like what the killer's doing. And after a while, I found myself getting irritated. I was annoyed because I was feeling like, all right, come, let's just move this along, get on with it. Because there's this kill happening and just continuing and continuing and like forever. Good Lord. And then there's someone just standing there watching like an idiotic lump, just watching, just standing there watching. This is not anyone that's, helping him, not anyone that's on his side, one of the, potential victims, just standing at a distance watching. I guess you could say they're frozen in fear, but I don't know. After a while, it got to be really noticeable that it was going on too long. And it was moments like that, all of the walking through the woods, moments like where this person is just standing for quite a while watching this kill take place and just standing and watching, and the kill's taking place, it's still going as well. The person's dead by then. It's still going, I mean, come on. By that point, the movie was starting to lose me a little bit. I will give it marks in the pro category, like I've already said, but I think that for me, this film is more in the con category for the reasons that made it interesting. It also brought it down because it was like they leaned way too heavily into that too much. Some of the kill setups were lame. There's one scene where a person is being chased down. They get to like the edge of, it's not even a cliff, it's just a steep hill. And then they just stop and just stand there and wait to be killed. What? You could go down the hill. It's not that steep. You're not gonna kill yourself. It's not like a cliff face. So that was stupid. And then as the kill is taking place, no screaming, and they're still standing after a horrific injury that has been done upon them. And then the kill continues to progress, and it's quite creative, very gnarly kill, I must say. But I just found it so hard to believe that there was no noise, there was no scream, and they were still remaining upright. Not possible. They would have dropped immediately like a bag of potatoes. So it's just like, that didn't work for me. And then there was a scene at the end where the protagonists-ish take too long to do something that they should do. And I understand there was exposition that needed to take place, but the problem is it was decided what was going to happen to solve this issue. And there was a perfectly viable option that was already available, but no, that option wasn't taken or even thought about until a little bit later, and even then you don't even really see it carried out. But the decision that was made as far as what to do about this situation, this deadly killer, and it was just such a lame setup for the fact that the killer's going to rise back up again. Very typical for horror movies. You think the killer's down for the count, and then they rise back up again and are able to, take out a few more people. This movie was very much an homage to 80s slasher horror, and I did appreciate some of the tropey sort of stuff that went on with that. Shots of people around a campfire, and there's evil lurking in the woods, and they're telling each other creepy stories and stuff. And also shots of the killer observing them, and you can see them in the distance and they have no clue they're being watched. Creepy moments like that, pretty effective, pretty well done. But this film leans way too heavily in these unique aspects of the filmmaking to the point that after a while it wears off, And it starts to feel like those things are just dragging it down. Something I also forgot to mention was the way it kind of wraps up. It felt like it was leading to something, very tropey type of tactic that we've seen in many horror movies. Part of me appreciated that my expectations were subverted when it came to that, but then at the same time, part of me felt that it just kind of petered out. It just felt very unfulfilling. So I guess that's the best way I can describe that ending. Also, that particular scene went on way too long. And I think it was done just for purposes of being able to highlight a particular actor who showed up in that scene because they had been in some other slasher movie, but that really dragged as well. That's another scene that just went on way too long. This movie was 1 hour and 34 minutes. Obviously, credits are going to take up a few minutes of that, so let's say 90 minutes. And honestly, it feels like about 15 to 20 some minutes could have been cut, and it would have been much more effective if it were quite a bit shorter. I think they could have condensed it down, given you the important details that you needed to know about the character, what was going on, why the character was doing what he was doing, without extending it out so far. I mean, I get in the beginning kind of pulling you into that, okay, well, he's walking some more and walking and walking and walking and walking, and he's walking here and walking there. It was too much after a bit. And so, unfortunately, despite the uniquely cool things about it, it's those things that eventually made this film slide more into the negative territory for me. I'm probably going to have to give this no higher than a 3-star rating, which might be a little bit too high, maybe 2.5, 2.75, just for the interesting way it was done initially, but it just got too draggy. The kills got a little bit too ridiculous, some of the setups for them as well, and very unrealistic reactions on the part of people that were getting killed. There's no way in hell they would be able to stand upright for the length of time they were standing upright. And it happened with more than one person. It wasn't just the one person I mentioned. There was another time where the person was standing way too long for what was done to them. And that initiated some eyebrow rolls on my part. And when I start to feel that way about a movie, it does not say good things about my overall thoughts on it. So I think that's everything I have to say about In a Violent Nature. I do get the feeling that reaction to this on the part of movie viewers is quite, I would say mixed, but I know it's down. Critics, way high. Audience, way low. I'm siding with the audience on this. Maybe a skosh higher than the audience, but not much. No, actually, maybe I'm right there with the audience. Maybe even lower. Okay, definitely wrapping this one up, and we'll see you guys in the next video later.